talk about transferring value. So one of the things that I started to notice about a few years into really using reward-based training in my dressage horses is how I started to raise my own value with them. So I started to become more important to them. And it was all because of the reward-based training. There had really not been that much that had changed about me or my riding style or my technique of training, except for that I started incorporating rewards. And basically, the value of those rewards gets magically infused into the relationship between me and my horse, and in essence makes me more valuable in the horse's eyes, right? Because all good things are coming from me. And it's not just like in training, but in daily life, in daily interactions, like every good thing in their life is somehow associated with me. And I set it up that way, right? I set it up that way because I want to have that relationship with my horses. I want them to look forward to working with me. I want them to find enjoyment in what we do together. And so by using this idea of value, of adding value to their life and then transferring that value, I not only got like them more excited about their training and more motivated and more willing and more trusting, but I also upped the value of myself in their eyes. When we go into positive reinforcement, then we're actually rewarding a behavior because we want more of that behavior. So we're kind of saying like, if you do this behavior, then you're going to get this reward, right? So now we can use that in our training to say, well, this is what we want, so we're going to reward it. And then the horse starts saying, oh, if I do that, I get this. And that contingency of if this happens, then this happens. And then they start wanting to offer that thing that gets rewarded. That's the whole principles behind reward-based training. What's really awesome about that is that if you take something that is really rewarding for a horse and you pair it with something that's really not rewarding for a horse, actually the exercise that wasn't originally rewarding gets like this infusion of rewards from the thing that it's paired with. And the cool thing about the horses is they like learn this way of learning. And so they'll start offering behaviors, or they'll start trying to figure it out what it is that you want, right? So when we talk about that whole idea of wanting the horse to work with us and wanting them to engage with us and all of that, it comes from this kind of training, this value training, this transferring of value, because the horses start thinking and they're like, okay, last time I did this, then this happened. And so it gets them really thinking and really trying to figure out what you want. And like, who doesn't want a partner like that, right? Like, who wants a partner that just goes off and does whatever they want and doesn't care about like what you're trying to learn or what you're trying to train? You want that horse to be engaged and say, "Ooh, what are we learning today? Okay, what do I need to figure out? Like, how can I figure this out?" And that's what this transferring of value idea is all about. So the cool thing is that you can actually transfer value of something that is super valuable to them to something that is not that valuable to them. The whole importance of this concept is you want every good thing that happens in that horse's life to go through you. So that what ends up being the really icing on the cake and where the magic happens is because if every great thing comes through you, you get associated with every great thing. That means that your value as the trainer goes up and up and up and up and up. So we really, and this is why I started to realize about, I don't know, maybe 5 years into reward-based training, this really started to dawn on me about how much my value was increasing in the horse's eyes. Like on just little silly things, day-to-day things, right? And I started really realizing how powerful of a tool this is, that by every good thing coming from me and their access to every good thing coming from me, that I could actually increase my own value, which then made them choose me more. So it sounds kind of weird in the beginning because you're like, well, why would if the horse really wants to be with his herd mates, why would he choose you? Well, what if his access to his herd mates always happened through me? Well, then he'd realize that I was like the door to the herd mates, right? Or if every time he was fed, it was fed through me, then realistically, the door to being fed is me. I'm the door. So let me give you an example. I have a horse that likes to paw at the door during dinner time. And it was getting increasingly, at first I just ignored it, right? I was like, okay, I'm not going to reward him when he's doing it, but, I'm not going to really do anything about it. I would just kind of ignore it. And then I would choose a time when he wasn't pawing to feed him. He wasn't really getting the idea. The behavior wasn't going away because it wasn't getting rewarded. It was just too reinforcing and too valuable in and of itself. So I thought, I'm going to teach him an alternate behavior, which is like a counter conditioning way of training. So it's like a horse can't be pawing and doing this other behavior, so I'm going to teach this other behavior. So what I decided to do, because he has both a front access and a back access door in the stall, so I would then choose to click and reward and feed him when he went toward that back door. So it started with that, just like he would get tired of pawing, he'd circle once. When he was back by the back door, that's when I would feed him dinner. Then I started building a little bit of duration to it. So he had to go back there and kind of hang out for a second, and then I would feed him. So if you do that in really small increments, you can actually get them to kind of hang out back there for a while. And then I got to where he waited for the release word so that then he could come eat. So not only am I building value for me because I'm the one, it's like he had to do this behavior. If he did this behavior, then he got fed. So I'm building value for the behavior. So that behavior becomes more valuable. The pawing goes away because that's no longer has as much value. So now he goes and stands with his head outside the back door, right? Instead of pawing. So it also transfers value to me. That's the magic of this, is how you can transfer value from one behavior to another behavior. And then it also transfers the value to me because I'm the one that is giving the permission to eat, right? Because, and I have to be consistent. Like, it doesn't work. You can't just transfer value to you if your horse gets frustrated, if your horse gets if you're not consistent with what you're asking, if you're not consistent with the reward, if you're not consistent with the behavior. If you ask too complicated of a behavior from the very beginning, it wouldn't work. If I had said, you got to go stand to the back of the stall and you have to wait there 10 minutes, it would have never worked. I had to build that behavior. The first thing was I got him to walk away from the front of the stall, and it was a natural behavior. He would get tired of pawing. He would circle once. I would reward him when he would walk away from the front of the door. 1, he wasn't pawing. 2, he was doing a different behavior, right? And then I shaped that to be what I wanted it to be, so that now he goes and stands back there until I release him, and then he comes up and eats. We're still working on it. We're still building it. I still think that there's like some different aspects of that behavior that I want to have a little bit more solid. But I'm not sure if I'm being really clear, but it does happen, this whole transfer of value, which is amazing. And that's what I have found to be like this golden nugget of reward-based training, that I have a lot of value in my horse's eyes, no matter what I do. They seek me out. They want to know. I come down the barn. I don't feed them every time I'm down the barn. Sometimes I'm just doing barn chores. Sometimes I'm doing projects. Sometimes I'm just walking through to get someplace else. But they're always like, what, there she is. Oh, and it's only because I have added that much value, because the interaction with me is positive enough on a regular basis that they're like, oh, that's an important person in the herd. That's an important person in the herd. And that's what I want, right? I want to be an important person to them. I want them to enjoy working with me. I want them to seek me out. So what I've noticed with this transferring of value that I think is so important is that when I have to ask them to do something that they might not want to do, right? Like the vet comes and they have to be scoped, or they're sedated, but they have to have an injection, or whatever. Like something happens that at the moment they're like, I don't know that I want to do it. You know, they trust me and they look to me and they say, okay, it's going to be okay, because like 99.999% of all my other interactions with this person were good. That's the benefit of reward-based training in general. I mean, if you're always just doing pressure and release, and you're always just doing punishment or coercion of some point, at some way, you are not going to get this this interaction with your horses. You're just not. You're not. I can guarantee it. You might have obedient horses, but they are not necessarily going to seek you out. You have to bring them comfort in some way, shape, or form in order for them to seek you out. Now, do some of these, horse whispers, natural horsemanship, they bring the horse comfort? Yes, because they're very clear. The horses totally understand what's expected of them. There is a lot of consistency. There's a lot of consistency in what they do. And the release of pressure, which is called negative reinforcement, is a sort of comfort because there's no longer any pressure on the horse. But if you want to take that and launch it off to some place that really changes the dynamic of your relationship, reward-based training is it. It's it. It's all about the value, them finding value in what you're doing together, them finding value with you. And it is a trainable thing to add value. You add value, you transfer that value to behaviors that you want, and you transfer that value to you. And that is the magic. That is, I just can't go on and on enough about how valuable that concept is when it comes to training. And I have to say that, I'm not going to the Olympics tomorrow, and I'm not God's gift to the training world. But one consistent thing that I have had as a comment on my dressage scores over, 4 or 5 of my own personal horses over a decade of training is that they always say to me, this is a great partnership, or you guys are a phenomenal pair, or they'll make some comment about the connection between the two of us, and they'll make some and it's like evident in every single one of my horses' relationships, and sometimes I mess up. Like, I'm not perfect, right? So I'm just going to put that out there. But I think that my idea of wanting to work with the horse and trying to find a way to work with them to make their training as enjoyable as possible has built that. And it also comes down to when things hit the fan, right? When crap goes down and things fall apart and whatever, that I always go back and say, how can I do it better? What do I need to learn to teach my horses better? Is it a skill that I need in riding? Is it a skill that I need in my position or biomechanics? Is it a skill with being able to identify what's going on with horse better? What is it? But I always go back to me. And even if I say in the moment, my horse, he's just, he's just too excited, or he's distracted, or he's not with me, I always know, and I always go back and say, what do I need to do? What do I need to change? What do I always put the responsibility back on me. And I think that reward-based training has given me just the insights, the perspectives, and the tools to actually make a drastic change. Like we talked about in a previous episode about choices. Like when I get that no, now I have multiple choices of how to handle that. Anyhow, that's my reflections today, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much.
Are you interested in learning more about reward-based training? Please check out reflectionsfromthesaddle.com. There's free training there, and blogs and videos, and even some e-courses that you can take. We look forward to seeing you there.